Hey, we're live. Okay, you don't see me right now because my wife isn't here, so camera's got to go back and forth. But we're over here. Hi, Al. So today I'm going to be working on the desk and having a little bit of fun with this. We're going to be, I cut the joinery on this for the video, but I forgot to cut the joinery on the other end. So I'm going to do all of the marking to get this up and going. And then I created a couple more dowels so I can do the glue up. I have to chamfer this. Yeah, got a bunch of things to do. And then, oh yeah, I got to do the joinery on that, and then I can do the pins through this, and so there's a bunch of things in here. If anyone has any questions, if you can put question at the beginning or something like that big so I can see it, because Sarah isn't here, so I can only see what's on the screen. Move that a little bit closer so I can see it. And I can't scroll up to see what was in the past. So we will be going on with this. So I need a knife and a square, and I've put all of the tick marks on this where it needs to go. Now I need to transfer those all the way around so I know where to cut this off at. So we're going to, first of all, cut this thing to length. I feel like I have been letting you guys down because I've been spending so much time getting the kids up and going with homeschooling that I have not had near as much time in the shop as I would normally want to. But such is life. Okay, we're on this side. Hi Arthur, what do you want? No, it doesn't work on your phone. Sorry, bud. It doesn't work on the tablet. Okay, now to cut this thing off. Forgot the shop apron. Actually, I rarely wear the shop apron. I actually haven't worn it in like a year and a half. I used to keep my microphone built into it, but now it's just been hanging here and it's pretty dusty. That was the reason I had a shop apron, is I could keep the microphone built into it. But since I've been recording with Luke, I haven't been using it as much. Hey Peter, how's it going? Having fun in the UK? Getting some things done? My bench has moved. I've got to move this back. Let's see if I can move it back. Nope. Oh yeah. Let me grab a 2x4. I'm too close to the wall. Move it with the 2x4. There's an inch. There's 2. Come on, move. Must be running into something over there now. Yeah, 2's better than nothing. Maybe that's why I remember it. Yeah, I wore the apron for probably about 4 years because the microphone was in it. It was much easier just to take the apron on and off than running a microphone through. There's 2 big benefits to having an apron. Number 1, it protects your clothes. But number 2, it allows you to store tools close to you. But the protection of the clothes isn't that big of a thing for hand tools because you're really not creating that much dust. And you know, it's not a problem for the clothes. And for tools being close, all my tools are within reach. So I have this hand wall here. So I really don't have any reason to be carrying tools around with me because they can all sit right there. So, hi from Turkey. How's it going? Been restoring some vintage saws. Nice. Infill planes. Ooh, happiness. Don't get a lot of infill planes over here. That's one thing that's a little more common in Europe, particularly in UK. More common in UK than Europe, at least from what I understand. now that the UK and Europe are two different things. That makes me happy. Really nice. Just a little bit of a split off right where they touched. So I'm going to grab a float and clean that off. Just like that. You got a finish ready end. Okay, so that's cutting it off flush. Next thing we need to do is cut the joinery in it, which is a little bit more tricky, but we'll do it. We'll make it happen. So I got to grab, if I remember correctly, my mortising gauge is set up for it. We just make sure. Coming from the right side. That side or this side? That side. So my stop mark is already marked. Now I need the two cheeks of the half lap or bridle joint. So if anyone has questions, I'm watching along and I'll try and get to those. Just kind of having a little bit of fun in the shop, working on the desk, getting some joinery done. Okay, I've got my depth of cut marked. I've got my sides marked. Now I'm going to grab my tenon saw and I'm going to cut down those lines. I'm going to secure it a little bit more. Right now it's up high, which means it'll be bouncing around. If I secure it down a little lower, it'll make it a little easier for this. Starting out, follow along the top, eyeball that line all the way across. Now I can follow the line down my side. Down to the bottom, down to this far corner. Basically a parallel from here to here. Do the same thing on this side. Along the top. Oop, a little off the line. When you go off the line, I'm actually going to back up and I'm going to move over. I think I'm out of frame here. Sorry. Let me zoom in a little bit more on this while I'm doing this. Zoom in. Ooh, look at that. Now it's focused though. There we go. I've come off of this line a little bit. So rather than keeping down and trying to force the saw back in, I'm going to back up, I'm going to twist the saw over and scratch the side until I get it back on that line and then continue down. Don't try to fix the line farther down. Stop and fix it where it's at. There's that. Turn it around, do the same thing on this side. Some vintage saws. Ready cut. Release the head glare. Thanks, man. I have no head glare. What are you talking about? Yeah? Actually, I'm going to turn around and do it from the other side. No, it doesn't really matter which side I do it from. Let's do it over here, though. This is only the fourth time I've done this. You think I would have had a method by now. There we go. And now I'm going to follow down the line on my side now. It was used to be the other side. Down to depth here. I'm going to level that out and go down to depth on both sides. Down to depth, down to depth. There's our cut. The line is a little bit off, so we're going to twist the saw and scratch it back. There, now we're back on cut. Down to depth, all the way across, down to depth, ooh, a little past depth, oops, oh well. Okay, so we've cut down, now we need to chop that out. Will that work with a pole saw? Sure. Anything you do with a pole saw, you can do with a push saw. Only thing is if you're running into a back on one side or the other. So a lot of people have been asking me why I've been chopping these in the vise. And the reason for that is it's a curved surface, so it makes it harder to clamp to the bench. So there's not a real good way of locking it down. And there really isn't a problem with chopping in the vise. You're going to lose a little bit of your power, but not as much as people kind of expect. Dull chisel. Let's grab this one. Oh, sorry, I'm going to have to refocus that camera now. So you see basically nothing. That's a nice looking wall, don't you think? Oop, exit. Here we go. There. So now let's chop in here. Ooh. Hope all's good with the missus. Yeah, so far so good. She's at work right now, and she's been pulling, excuse me, like 12-hour days. Had to do some sanding in the shop, so I got some dust floating around. I should probably be wearing a respirator right now for that. So I'm coughing. It's because of that. A little bit more force. Okay, now we can chop down and then pare back to it. Break out the chips, chop down, pare out, chop down, pare out, chop down, so on. I got a lot of people who were not happy with me in the video for chopping in the vise. Hi, first time viewer here. Hey, how's it going? Who is that? Shane? Good to have you. We're having fun doing joinery I thought was done. Apparently I had one more joint to clean out. So, chopping this one down. So what are you guys working on right now? Any fun projects? I know a lot of people who are doing quarantine projects, but I'm still working on a project I was planning on. I'm about to start, my next one, as long as I have enough lumber for it, which I've got to look into, is making a set of drawers to go underneath this desk. But if I don't have that, I've got a coffee table that I want to make with a really cool design that's been kind of intriguing me for a while. Almost there. Okay, now let's flip this over and cut from the other side. I always chop in the vise. You know, I used to chop in the vise almost always because it's quick and easy. You do lose a little bit of your power, but not that much. But if I have it, if it's easy enough to throw a holdfast on it, I usually chop on the bench top just because a holdfast is just about as quick. This is bringing you back nightmares of mortise chopping on a Rubo bench. Yeah. Some people really like it, and some people are crazy. I got a stability question for you. Making a wood folding game table that has lots of wobble. Gonna put a cross brace between each side of the legs for back and forth wiggle. Okay? I don't know what the question is. Sounds like the right thing to do. Do you do restoration videos? Yes, I probably have about 20, 25 restoration videos. All different types of tools. I did a lot of them when I was getting my shop set up. I haven't done them in a little while, but I do pull them out every now and then. Not too long ago I did an old Sheffield saw. Done a lot of planes, lots of chisels, other things. Yeah, I have over 1,000 videos on my channel of all types of hand tool woodworking, and restoration and tool demonstrations. If anyone's ever looking for a particular video, if you search wood by right and then whatever topic, you'll come across it. But I think I have a whole playlist set up for restoration videos, tool restoration. The front and back wiggle. Thinking of a bar attaching a hinge that will wiggle into there. Yeah, I would have to see a picture of what you're talking about. Replacing all the interior doors with 6-panel Alpine style rail doors. Then the wife said she would have been happier with pre-finished doors because she wanted them painted. Can you cut a good French cleat by hand? Yes, I actually have a video on cutting French cleats. My wall behind with all my tools on it is all French cleats. There you go. The chunk has been removed. Oopsies. Banging things around. Let me make sure I've got this where it needs to go. I think I'm off by a 1/4 inch there. That one would make more sense than that one. Let me see just how far off I am. Make an angled groove that's fixed across brace swivel bar. Oh, he's thinking about the table. Here we go. Let me move over here. Got to do some checking on this end. So this goes over here. This one is here. So it goes in there. This is Sarah's end. So yes, it would go in there. So I need to actually flip this whole thing around. Just checking my markings. So I want to make sure it's where it needs to be before I chop out stuff I'm not supposed to chop out. As is wise most of the time. So that mark goes on there. That lines up with that. And that mark on there. Yes, that is where I want it to be. So it's not quite a pure angle. It's a little off. And that's perfectly fine. So let's clean up this joint then. Yes? Yeah, you guys can play in the backyard. I've been having fun doing homeschooling. They just finished with their classes. I'm making a side table for my final project at college, inspired by your table. Love the thought of through tenons. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's one I've played with quite a bit, is having those through tenons that cross each other in the surface, so you only have half a through tenon. Just kind of an interesting way to play about it. I've only seen that done with one other person, and I can't remember where I got the idea for it. I doubt the idea originated in my brain. Very little actually does. I like to riff off of what other people do. Don't split the wood today, mate. No guarantees. If anyone was on the live on Tuesday, I let my wife pound on something and split out the side. So I've got to do some glue up today, so we'll try it again on the other two and see if it happens. There's that. I need a block to fit in there. Oh, here, I got the real thing. Let's just slide that in. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Nice and clean. Okay, so this one's all done. Quick question. Would you recommend against through mortise and tenon in a half lap joint, a through mortise and tenon in a half lap joint. I don't know what you mean. Half lap on the leg, short rail, mortise and tenon, short rail, mortise and tenon, long rail into them. Sorry, man, not quite sure what you're saying. Send me a picture, send me an email, and I'm glad to take a look at it. Clarifying things on text is always a pain. Okay, now, here so I made the mistake of cutting all of these chamfers prior to doing this, so I've got to remark these. And these. Boy, those kids are loud. I don't know if you guys can hear them, but they're banging on the floor above me. I'll pop a picture later on the Facebook group. Cool, yeah, I'd like to see it. Yeah, if any of you don't know, I have a group on Facebook called the Wood by Right Hive Mind group. And it's kind of a place where I bounce ideas off of people, and other people can show their work and ask questions. Just a fun place to hang out. Now we can cut the slot for that to fit in on this side. Give it a test. Let's see how it goes. Now let's cut down at a weird angle here. One side. Two side. Now he chops it out. Hey! Are you going to do a live stream every day until you finish the desk? No, I've been doing them like every other day. The last one was on Tuesday. I don't always get the chance to work down here every day. Yesterday I had a whole bunch of other projects since I wasn't actually able to do any woodworking. But every other day. I think tomorrow I'm going to be doing a live shop hangout with the patrons. So if you are a patron on Patreon or a member here, I'm probably going to be doing a hangout so we can actually do a live face-to-face. So if you're in your shop, you can turn it on and show me what you're working on, and we can kind of hang out and have a little bit of fun. But I'm going to try and do a live every other day or so. Where I sported the Oregon plants. Yep, that's right. Little bit knocking out here, a little bit knocking out there. Just chopping these in a little ways so that I give myself a stop, so when I pare through, it'll naturally want to break out on what I chopped. Now we have that in place. Ooh, don't drop it on the file. Now we can clean out all this. The virus gets you can have your pillar drill, please. Sorry, man. I don't know what you meant by that, Peter. If the virus gets you, can I? Oh, if the virus gets you, can you have your pillar drill? No, actually, this one, I got to, Bearcat Woodworking wants this one. I keep meaning to find out how much it's going to cost to ship out there. But I've got another one over there that I'm going to restore that's much bigger than this one. I've been looking forward to doing that one. Just cleaning this out. And we'll take the file, go across the bottom. Just like that. And let's see how this fits. So I've got this one and, stink. Which one did I just cut? This is Sarah's end, right? Sarah's end. So it's this one and this one. Now we can see how well this joint comes together, as long as I can find a way to stabilize this here. Let's do it over here. First time a joint comes together, it never comes together the way you want. So there's always going to be some fiddling and tweaking back and forth. Let's see how this one goes. Although with these bridle joints, they are pretty easy. They do have a much better success rate. Oop, don't do that. And let's do this. There we go. That's pretty darn nice and tight. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup there. That'll work. That'll work nicely. Ta-da! Okay, where did I go wrong in there? Oh yeah, you got a little burr down in there I got to clean out. Just a little bit of something sticking down in there. You know, one of the biggest problems that most people have with joints is not cutting the joints, but seeing where they need to detail and seeing what is causing issue. In this case, I just got a little bit of schmoo sticking up here in the middle. I can't quite get it with that, so I gotta get it with this. Just like that. A little more here. There we go. That joint is done. This one's ready to glue up, which goes with this set over here. And now we can move on to that. Okay, let's see. Knowing what's worse than having blown through. Know what's worse than having blown through. Spent the entire day, 10 hours on each door. Then spend somewhere between 4 to 7 hours installing each door, because not one door opening was even square. Yeah. If a virus gets the woodwork all over, you're buried with them. Yeah, something like that. Family, we call those kinds of requests putting my masking tape on it. Putting masking tape on it. There you go. Okay, so what do I need to do here now? I've got that one chamfered, I've got that one chamfered, that one's ready. Did I mark that? This one I need to smooth, so I need to pull that out. So okay, let's do that then. So next thing I'm going to do is I still have to put the chamfers on this, and I want to get that all done before I go any farther. Then I'm going to glue up the legs. Well, chamfers on this and then smooth this out, because I've got a lot of schmoo on here that needs to be cleaned up. And then we're going to work on gluing up some legs. James, if you were to put wood on interior wood shop walls, would put MDF on it or OSB or plywood sheets on it? Honestly, I would probably put up slats rather than plywood. But if it was between plywood, MDF, and OSB, I would definitely put up plywood. Plywood's just cleaner. It's easier to work with. OSB splinters off if it gets wet, and it just doesn't look good. MDF is not strong enough to hang things on, so I wouldn't do that. 8-foot pram. PRA, pram. I don't know what 8-foot pram is. Okay, so let's start chamfering this. So he was doing this a lot on Tuesday. And for most of them, I've been chamfering with the plane. But because this is curved, the plane doesn't work on this. So I'm going to chamfer with my spokeshave, which I just put away. Of course I put away. I actually have this set up where one side is cutting deep and the other side is cutting shallow, so that I can take off a lot pretty quickly, and then I can come back and smooth it out. Oh, all the dust in the air in here. So, spokeshave is an incredibly fun tool to play with. And it's one that my kids love playing with. So anytime they get the chance to mess around with it. Put you in just a little further. There we go, there's a deep check. And so I'm doing one section at a time, and then I'll feather them out in between. I'll get it close to the depth I want. And then I'm going to come in with the fine side. Just do one clean shaving, get a nice smooth edge. And you tip over, do the same thing down the side. Haven't had two previous. Yeah, OSB is definitely the easier way to go to. I just had problems with it in the past. If I ever got water on it, it would bubble out and just look bad. And then it's just a personal preference. So, but it's like what, a quarter of the price of plywood. So you can't go wrong with that. Well, you can always go wrong, but I love these curls. This is just so much fun. Oh, let me turn the camera over. Sorry, I didn't realize I was pointing over there. Playing. Okay. Let's go over here. There, that's better. It's much better when Sarah's in here for the live. So the chat is much more fun. Not to mention, she gets to read the questions, so I'm not having to look for them. Okay, there's the depth. Now let's come in with the fine side. Get a fine curl on there. Okay. So now we've chamfered from there to there and then feathered to here. So I'm going to move this along further and do the same thing this side. Any reason you use a chisel to chop in the middle of joints instead of coping saw? The chisel's just faster, at least for me. Coping saw is almost always slow, and I tend to run into problems. I've just never been a big fan of coping saws, but again, personal preference. Same thing with dovetails. I don't cope out in between the tails or pins. I chop them out. I just find it to be faster. When I've timed it both ways, for me, I found chopping to be about twice as fast as coping, and I find it to be more fun. I love these curls. Making sure the chamfers match up. I know I'm good when I have a hard time finding where one chamfer stops and the other one starts. Smoothing chamfer. Cool. Now let's turn around, do the last bit on that side. Hum. Not easy to put down a number on a live chat. Not easy to put down a number on a live chat. Not sure what you mean, Kenneth. How is homeschool going? So far, pretty good. I was homeschooled growing up, so it's something I'm fairly used to. It's just getting the curriculum set up and getting the kids up and going on it, so it's going pretty well. It was something we were thinking about doing next year because we want to do more traveling, and it would be nice to be able to take the kids. Let's do history class at Gettysburg. You know, there's a lot of things you could do like that. Not to mention, I'd like to do more videos showing historical methods in different places and actually go to some of the people who do it day in and day out and show other people doing woodworking with other techniques and methods. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I'd love to go to Holland sometime and show off some of the old windmill sawmills. Those are absolutely cool. And I've seen a couple of videos on them, but I want to see them myself. Pushing now. I don't know why I get asked a lot, why do you pull or why do you push? Just because at one point, one is more comfortable than the other, but I do both pretty close to equally. There. There's one side, 2 chamfers all the way down. The Czech Republic. Good to meet you, man. Yeah, everyone in our house is pretty good right now. My wife is working 12-hour plus days, so she comes home and she's totally exhausted. And the consensus at her hospital is they're kind of just standing on the shore, seeing the hurricane in the distance, knowing it's going to make landfall, but they don't know when, and they don't know how bad. It's just coming. So all they're doing is preparing and getting things ready. They've got quite a few patients in the hospital right now. But the thing we're waiting on is one of these days the hospital might go into lockdown. And if they do that, then I won't see my wife for a couple weeks because she'll actually be living at the hospital. They're setting up dormitories in the basement for that. So we'll see what the future holds. That's the other thing we're thinking about traveling is doing travel nursing. Just go someplace for 3 or 4 months. Sarah can work and I'll teach the kids. Put out woodworking videos in another country. It'd be kind of fun to do like a Chinese woodworking series and actually show some historical Chinese woodworking or something of that nature, or Japanese or Taiwanese or some European countries. I think that would be really fun to show. Yeah, that's pretty. What other questions we have? Don't push James on push versus pull. You might him apart. It might tear him apart. Oh, don't put, got it. Yeah, if I had my druthers, my walls would be 3/4 inch solid oak, but I don't often have my druthers. And my druthers are expensive. I think second after that would be 3/4 inch solid pine, doing slat walls with like a shiplap joinery. I think that would be cool. Then third would be 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood. Or actually I'd probably do like an oak face plywood. Fourth would probably be a low grade AB plywood, 3/4 inch. Fourth would probably be 3/4 inch OSB. I don't think I would do 1/2 inch OSB. I've had problems with it. And I don't think I would ever go down to MDF. But everyone's different. Do a video series on Japanese timber framing. Yeah, that would be, I would love to do, a month in Japan and do some videos actually walking around old Japanese temples that have been standing for several hundred years, some over 1,000 years, and show the joinery, and then try and find someone around who's doing that and show the joinery being done. I think that'd be a crazy cool series. But that'd be a very, very, very expensive series, as I don't live in Japan. Wow, I need to feather that out a little better. Yeah, just like that. Chamfer all the way along there. Just have to chamfer a little bit more. Oak, I like the look of oak far, far better than maple. Maple just doesn't look good. Maple's like, bleh. Maple is hard, it's tough, and it doesn't give any reward of appearance. Whereas oak looks fantastic, and it's well worth the difficulty. But that's my personal preference. Hello, is it direct? Big kiss from France. Hey, how's it going? Spalted silver maple. Cool. I like silver maple. Silver maple is nice. It's not quite the iron maple or rock maple or sugar maple or whatever maple you want to call it. It's much, much easier to work with, but you get all the appearance of regular maple. So if you're looking for something light, almost all the time I'm going to go with a soft maple as opposed to a hard maple. There are very few things that I really would use a hard maple on, personally. I am confined in my house because of the virus. Yep. I basically am too. My kids and I don't leave the house unless we have to. And today I actually had to because my wife needed lunch. And unfortunately the hospital doesn't have the cafeteria open. So she forgot to take some, and that means she had no lunch. So she had nothing to eat for a 12-hour long shift. So we drove over there. I stayed in my van and she just reached inside the door and got it. But other than that, I've been in the house for the last 2 weeks. Well, other than going into the backyard. We're fortunate to have about 1/4 acre of a yard, so we have a decent amount of space back there. Tried my hand at hand tool woodworking and can't seem to saw straight. Yeah, sawing straight. I have several videos on how to follow a line with a saw. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize the camera's over here. Sawing straight is number one about body mechanics. And that is something that is very difficult for people to learn because a lot of it is counterintuitive and feels weird. But once you get the body mechanics done, I can teach you all day long that this is what you have to do, but the only way to learn that is to do it for hours and hours and hours and hours. And all of those hours, it's going to be going off the line and going off the line until one day it just suddenly clicks and it's like, and you don't think about it. But it takes hours of work to get there usually. Some people are a little better at it, some people are a little worse, but there is no fast way to getting good at sawing. It's one of those things you just got to do. You got to get through a lot of bad cuts before you get to a good one. Here, clamp this up a little bit better. Shoot, I can't. Let's do it this way then. Yeah, spalted maple's pretty good, but if you're going to spalt something, spalt some oak. Oh, spalted oak is gorgeous. You get all the rays and the figure of that. Spalted cherry's pretty good, though the cherry tends to hide it. Like you can't tell the difference between spalted walnut and regular walnut. But there are a few things as gorgeous as quarter sawn spalted white oak. It is just, well, yeah, okay. You could get quarter sawn spalted curly white oak. That is gorgeous. Although I've never had quarter sawn spalted curly white oak. I've had spalted curly white oak, which is just gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. I mean, there's so much grain figure on that that it's just beyond words. I think it's almost time to sharpen this block plane. Finding myself using more brute force on it than I want to get the cut I'm looking for. Hi, Melody. Frozen yogurt. Ooh, mouth is sliding. That's one of the reasons. Yeah, you guys can have a frozen yogurt. Yeah, it took me probably about a year's worth of work sawing until I could rip a board from one end to the other without a problem. I know some people will take a little longer than that, and I've known some people who can do it in a month or two and they'll be gorgeous at it. The best advice I can give you for sawing is record yourself. Set up a camera in line with your sawing. And what you want to see is you want the saw to be in line with your hand, in line with your arm, your elbow, your shoulder. This whole thing needs to be a perfect line coming in and out. So if you set the camera up there, you'll see if your body gets in the way, you'll be doing one of these things. Or if your body's too far away, you'll be doing one of these things. And so you'll be seeing that your arm isn't in line with the saw. So if you put it here, you'll see my arm is in line with the saw. I'm making a nice straight cut. The other thing is if you find yourself always cutting off one direction, it's always going the same direction, the set on your teeth is wrong and you need to fix your saw. And there are times, yes, you can blame your saw that your cut isn't very good. Ever had English brown oak? Yes, actually I have a piece of that up here. Not that big. It's I've got, here it is, right here. I'm looking for something to use this. This is actually pulled out of a barn. It's 100-year-old and just gorgeous piece of white English oak. Someday I'll have something to do with that. I went through your list of hand tools on your site and I made myself an Amazon list. Cool. Well, thank you. I really need to redo that because there are several other good sites and Amazon doesn't have a lot of hand tools. It has some good starter hand tools, but it's not great on really good hand tools. So I want to put a few links in there to Tay Tools, T-A-Y Tools. I've been working with him recently, and I want to put a few links to some of the stuff on there because he has some things on there that you just can't get other places. Only had the silver maple because next door neighbor is cutting it down. Always trying to mirror the saw with the wood while cutting into it, but every time I end up with a slanted cut. Yeah, put the camera on it and put the camera in line as well as putting the camera from the side. So if you see it from both sides, it'll become blatantly obvious if you're doing something wrong because you just look weird when you're sawing. And I think that's That's one of the things that I saw is I would actually video myself sawing for YouTube and be like, oh, that looks bad. I should do it this way instead. I got that tip from Shannon Rogers at the Hand Tool School, which, if anyone really wants to learn hand tool woodworking, that's the place for it. Better than any other hand tool school out there. Shannon Rogers at the Hand Tool School, he does some really cool stuff. And his ethos is really, really good about it. Almost there. There we go. Now let's smooth some of this out. There we go. Ooh, splinter. Bad splinter. Not that there's a really good splinter. That one is deep. Hi from Macedonia. How's it going? Okay, so let's marker this out so I know where it's going, and then we can start smoothing. Oh, there's my pen. So this end, this is James' end, and this end is Sarah's end. There we go. And now we're going to start scraping and smoothing this. And the last thing I'm going to have touch this wood. Yeah, Paul Sellers has a good one too. I've been on his for a while as well. I like what he's doing. He has some amazing information on there. The Hand Tool School with Shannon Rogers just has, it's a better form of learning something as opposed to projects. You just get in my mind, you get a little bit better bang for your buck. Not in quality of work, but in scope of work and teachability of it. I love it when I get these nice wisps. Just cleaning up any epoxy drip, any markings, any pencils, doing the final smoothing on this. And this will basically be ready for finish. French door for your finger. French door for your finger. Yes, the splinter. Ooh, I got some good bit of epoxy drippage on this one. I like having you guys here. Thank you. That makes it much easier to do this rather than just doing it. And flip it around. I think it's almost time to sharpen this one. Yeah, this one's dull. You know, I just got to finish this one. I got to finish this face and I'm done with it, so I'm going to put up with it. I'll get more sawdust, but it'll get done. And then I'll have to sharpen it next time. And next time I'll be like, oh, I just got to do this. I don't need to sharpen it. I'm just going to finish this little piece. That's the way it usually goes. Oop. Well, that edge is a little better. How big a chamfer did you put on this? It's a pretty big one. It's just shy of a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch chamfer. It's not quite a full 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. I just eyeballed what I liked, and that was what I liked, so I stopped at that point. And that's a lot of times how I choose the things I want. Is I go and try them. I'll grab a scrap piece of wood and just play around with it until I get the size I want. And I'll dial in my tool to do that. Just eyeball it. And there we go. I already did the sides on this. So that one's good to go. Oh, I gotta smooth that one. Yeah, we'll do it. I got one more of these I gotta smooth out, and then we're gonna do some gluing. Since I've gotten the pins to actually do the gluing. Because if you were here Tuesday, I got up to the glue up and realized I only had 4 pins left. So last night I had a little bit of free time, and I made up 4 more pins. Which, if you haven't seen how to make pins, I actually have a video on how to use a dowel maker, or a dowel plate, so you can drive your own. So I had some scraps of walnut and drove those through. Inspired me to get better at hand tools. Well, thank you. It's really the goal of this channel is not to teach hand tools per se. It's not to teach traditional woodworking, not even to teach woodworking. It's more or less just the joy of woodworking. And so I make mistakes. I do dumb things, and I'll learn from it, and next time I'll do something better. I've done quite a few videos that I put out information one way, and then later on I'll put out a video saying, you know, I've done it a few times and I actually prefer to do it this way now. And I really want the channel to be about the joy of woodworking, having fun, experimenting, playing around. It's not about making perfection, it's just about having fun in the shop. Is for boathouse. Now this is the therapy we need going on. Thanks for streaming. My pleasure. Is for boathouse. Sorry, Maxu. Don't know what you're saying. Okay, let's smooth out this one. Sorry, off camera a little bit. Oop, that's why. Use the right edge. Got one edge on this that's still somewhat decent, so it should be enough to get me a decent edge on this. As long as I don't have to cut through too much epoxy. No, I need to sharpen this. It's just causing me problems. So, let's do this up right. Actually, that edge feels pretty good. Nope, it's lying. Yeah, let's do it the right way. Do it the right way. Take the time. Do it right. Don't speed. Take the patience. Oh, it's such a hard thing to learn. So I'm taking off the faces on this. Normally I set up my whole sharpening surface for this, but I'm just going to do a quick sharpening on this. And then I'm going to true the edges. If I really wanted to do a bang-up job on this, I grab the file down and really clean it up. It's not that far out, so there's no reason to do that. See, I build miniature model houses and stream all that. But hand tool woodworking is really a hobby I've been wanting to pick up. Oh, cool. I will often post unplug. Okay. So I just put out a video with this burnisher, making it as well as how I use it. Ooh, that's pretty. So on this side. That feels right. Now let's do this side. more. And how much a burr on there is, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways of testing it, but usually it's just about knowing what it feels like. So let's do this. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Beautiful curls. Oh, that made it all worth it right there. Oh, fluffy, fluffy, fluffy curls. I love having a good burnisher. No sanding required. This is just so pleasing. Getting down through all this old epoxy, taking off tiny, tiny little layers. Sorry, out of shot. There we go. Let me finish this over here. Light, wispy, fluffy curls rolling off the side. Hello from rural Germany. How's it going, man? Oop, I gotta mark these. So this one is Sarah's end. Sarah. And this end is James. Okay. Now we can take the tape off and scrape it down. This one's got a lot of epoxy on it. Need to get me one of those. Yeah, a good card scraper is just a phenomenal thing to have. Not only just escaping the having to sand, but just the finish it gives, the feeling, how easy it is. And if you want a good one, I sell them on my website, woodbywright.com/shop. Now, speaking of which, I actually have all of my plans on sale currently for 50% off. So I'm trying to help people out in the shop if you have something you want to build. All the plans are on sale right now for 50% off as long as you use the code, which is in the description down below. Got a spot here that's deep. Oh, it's sweat. You know those times when you drip sweat on your work and you think it's an epoxy drip? I do. Okay, let's put the magnet on here. If ever a card scraper is getting too hot, grab a refrigerator magnet, which I also sell these on my work on my shop if you need one. And it'll just keep it cool, so your thumb isn't straight across the card. Down through that epoxy spot. Shift this over here. Okay. Oh. Yeah, I've got an idea in my mind for a cable suspension coffee table. And the top of the table and the bottom of the table are only connected by cables, yet the two pieces separate. So all you see going between them are cables, but the two places are separated. And if you watch Action Lab, he just did a video recently on showing the structure for it. And it's one I've been wanting to make for a while. And so I finally found the two slabs I want to use for the two sides. Here we go. Happiness. Love a good smooth surface. Okay, so we got all that done. Next thing we do is glue up. So we're going to start gluing together legs. So let's clear off the bench and get me some space in here. Turn this around so we can see this a little better. I hear the thunder of kids. Hey JJ, what's up? No, JJ, I'm recording right now. Yep. JJ, can you close the door? Sorry guys, didn't mean to yell at you. It sounds so good that I ordered. Well, thank you, man. Thanks. That really does help out. No, I'm completely supported by you, the viewers. So thank you for that. Being in a desert country, we don't usually use wood. Yeah, there are quite a few places around. But if you go to like South Korea, it's completely wooded, but they rarely use wood for anything, which is kind of a funny circumstance. In the process of making my girlfriend a keepsake box, I cut everything with my table saw, then came here, and now I'm going to do the rest of the box with hand tools. Cool. I'd love to see pictures of them if you want to send me some. Or feel free to post them on the Hive Mind. I like to look at everything that people put on there. I get a lot of fun ideas from that. Okay, space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starfleet Wood by Right. Let's get this off. Enough for one dowel left of that stick, and then I made 3 more with the drift plate. Just gotta get some stuff off of it. There. Okay, we got our dowels. Let's grab legs. So we're going to do this one first. Let's do our dry fit. So 9 and 10. 10 is over there. And then on this side, we've got top and bottom. So 10 and 9. This is the top. That's the bottom. So then we've got 10 and 9, and this is Sarah's end, so this one goes on this way, right? All right, let's do the dry fit on this. Always, always, always do a dry fit. Make sure that everything is right before you get there. So there's one side. I love the fit on these. It just came out really well. We go down in place. And we have 10 and 10 going in this one. And that one, okay, so that's in there. Sarah's edge, which goes in here. So yes, this is exactly how we want it. So this goes here. Take this one off. This one, make sure again, 9. Out. Ooh, that didn't sound good. Did I break anything? Nope, just came close. Just cracking. That on there, that on there. Now let's mix up some, let me answer some of these. Don't let anyone with a pacemaker near it. Not sure what you're talking about. At the age of 12, I was making coffins, windows, doors, and all sorts of good things. Cool. Yeah, working with my kids, teaching them some woodworking as well. Challenge, make a puzzle box. I have actually 2 puzzle box videos. Well, one of them is a box that happens to be a puzzle, but you don't open it up. You just have to get a coin through it. The other one's actually a puzzle box. Can you ship over the pond to the UK? Yeah, everything on my website, I ship international. I know you have to pay for international shipping, but it's on there. Yes. A magnetic table with chairs. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Would you be able to put special curves on one so you can shape around the surface? Oh, like a card scraper? Yeah. Actually, I have quite a few curved card scrapers. So they come in all shapes and sizes. This one actually comes from Bearcat Woodworking. But I have a video showing how to make one out of an old saw plate. because the steel from a saw is almost identical to the steel from a card scraper. And so they make really, really good card scrapers. So I actually have one making a French curve out of an old saw plate, if you want to see that. If you search for Wood by Right, how to make a card scraper, that should pop up. Okay, let me go mix up some epoxy. And we'll make enough to put together 2 of these. Because I've got 2 more of them ready to go. So, I've got my epoxy in here. Where are my cups? They're over here. And I'm going to do 2 pumps. I'm using Total Boat High Performance Epoxy, for those of you wanting to know. 1 pump, 2 pump, catch the drip. 1 pump, up, 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 up. 2 pumps. Okay, now we're going to grab a brush. Not one of those. Hey, one of those brushes. Something that will let me spread the glue. My kids are currently having a sing-off, so I don't know if you can hear them or not. And now we mix. And one of the problems that most people have with epoxy is they don't mix it enough. You think it's mixed? It is not. You are halfway there. Any advice on large build accurately transferring markings where you can't lay the pieces together and run a straight edge? The best way to do it is to have another straight edge that can connect between the 2 pieces that you can guarantee. And there's a bunch of different ways of doing that, but most of the time it's, you know, a large square that transfers from one to the other. If you want help with a particular setup, send me an email. If you go to my website, woodbyright.com, there's a contact form on there. You send me a contact on there, and when I respond, then you can send me a picture. Otherwise, my email is listed on the About tab on Facebook. Okay, let's start this gluing. And with this, I've got a couple hours, so I'm not really rushed. I just want to make sure I don't put it where I don't want it. But even if I do, there'll be a little bit of cleanup I can do. One of the things I like about an epoxy is that it's a very forgiving glue. One of the reasons why I'm using epoxy is that anytime I do a half lap, the joints aren't incredibly tight, and there isn't a way of clamping them together. And if you're going to use a PVA glue, like Titebond, you have to have clamping force between them. And you have to have a lot of clamping force. So just putting 2 pieces together and holding them next to each other with wood in between is not enough for Titebond to work well. And that's one of the reasons why biscuits actually make tabletop joints weaker, is because nothing is actually clamping the biscuit into place. It doesn't actually provide any pressure. It expands a little bit, but not enough to actually clamp. And so biscuits actually make joint weaker. What they are there for is to help you, I need this into there. What they are there for is to help you align the 2 pieces. So if you planed everything ahead of time, then afterwards you won't have to do much planing because your pieces will line up because the biscuits will keep them together. Here's that side. What kind of spring steel? Pretty much any spring steel. There really isn't anything to a card scraper. You don't want a really hard steel. You want something that isn't soft. You don't want mild steel. Something with a carbon content, but something that has been softened a bit. So most any spring steel will work for it. There really isn't anything magical about the steel of a card scraper. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just started cutting and planing parts for the sawtill. Cool! Looking forward to seeing it. One, make sure 10 and 10. Clamp this one down in. There's that. Now we can put glue on these. And I want to put it on this side and that side. Gluing, gluing, gluing. And with epoxy, you don't have to apply much clamping force. Actually, with epoxy, you really don't have to apply any clamping force because it is very, very good at gap filling. But if you do have a large gap to fill, like 1/8 inch or more, one of the best things you can do is actually put glass beads, and so you have micro beads that'll go in there to fill it up. It makes it weigh less. It means you're using less epoxy. It actually does a better job of filling voids. When I was building a fiberglass airplane, I used to use glass beads all the time. Okay. One. Sorry, I'm not neglecting you. I'm just focusing on gluing right now. So I get this together, then I got to drive in pins, and then we can clamp this whole thing together. Hopefully it won't split out like last time. But you never know. I like showing off my problems, so if something does happen, oh well, such is life. And indeed, such is life when you're woodworking. 10 goes over there. And let me just think through this again, making sure. 10 is over there. 9 is over here. 9 and 9. So this is the top. This is Sarah's end. So this needs to go that way, right? Yes, that way into that way. This is Sarah's end. That and that. So let's set that end in a little ways. Then we can move this end. Oop. There it goes. Wipe the finger off. Then let's work it down. Okay, it's clamp time. So you're going to take all of the clamps off the one I did yesterday or Tuesday. Let's set those over here. 1 and 2. And then we need this one to go in between foot and top. So let's put this one on here. Should be close to fit, really close. There we go. Slide it up over there. And this one is going to clamp the top and bottom into place. These are held in place, so I don't have to worry about that. But now I need to clamp the legs back into this. And the drawbar pin will do that once I get them in place. But until then, I'm actually going to go with this and clamp them down in place. Because I don't want to split out like I did last time. Okay. Once I get this clamped down, I'll look back at the comments. Okay. Now we're going to add a little bit of epoxy down into those drawbar holes. Not that we need to, but because I want to. Well, that was a good way to make a mess. And then into this one. And then, oh, I got to chamfer the ends on these. So I want to chamfer the ends of these a little bit so they slide through the jaw bore split. Doesn't need to be much, just enough. And then we can pound them down in. Put the right end in there. We're out, woohoo! There's one. Let's do the other side. And then I'll check comments. Sorry, I haven't been reading up on them. And then we can glue the other set. And I'll have all of the legs gluing up for this. Just fell, okay. It was the tense moment I didn't want to repeat of Tuesday. Okay, set that one aside. Let's look at some comments. What do we got on here? I think speaking is more of a space. Wondering if there's a way with limited space and more accuracy. Yeah, I mean, if push comes to shove, a tape measure works great for transferring marks one to the other. Just realize it's not going to be quite as accurate, but if you're going over a distance, then that's the way it goes. I was wondering if you were still doing that big Chisel brand test. Yes, I have all of the chopping data done for the Chisel test. The only thing, I sent them off to get the hardening done. Actually, DMF Toolworks, which if you haven't seen his stuff, you got to do it. He's the guy who actually makes the card scrapers that I sell. And so you can buy the exact same card scraper that I sell, just without my logo on it, on Amazon for cheaper than I sell it. So if you go to my website to buy a card scraper, I have a link on my website to his card scrapers where you can buy them cheaper. It's the exact same thing, it just doesn't have my logo on it. But he's the guy that's actually paying to have the hardness test on it. So as soon as we get that back, then I will have the results out. Unfortunately, I don't know when I'll get that out now that everything's gone downhill. So we'll find out. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So if you are a patron on Patreon, you can actually see all of the info. I've been filling out the spreadsheet for it, so you can actually go on there and see the results that I have so far. And the results were enough that I went out and bought a set of chisels. So I got a new set of chisels, which I'll be showing off soon. That the results were very, very obvious about what was different and which chisels were better than others. So that'll be really cool to show. But if you're a patron on Patreon, you get to see that now. Have you ever used glue where you put an activator on one side and put pieces together? Yeah, so like a CA glue activator on one side. It's not a great glue joint. When you do that, it's always better if you put the glue on both sides, because if you put the activator on it, the side that touches the activator actually will harden before it connects to the wood. But it will give you a temporary glue joint that is almost instantaneous. Haunted Army, a length of timber layout, your joints. Oh, sorry, Haunted Army. Question, are you using hardwood dowels? Yes, the dowels I'm using are actually walnut. It's softer than the oak. But the main reason I'm using it is I'm looking for the touch of color that the walnut gives. The pens in this, because I'm gluing it, really aren't important, but they are nice. If I could be a tree, I would be white oak. Yeah, a burnisher is a piece of steel that is harder than the card scraper you're working with. And I actually have a video where I go through a bunch of different types of burnishers. Not all burnishers are equal. Some burnish much faster and easier than others. But the harder the steel is, the better and the faster it works. When boards are chamfered, when you buy them, do you plane that away or saw it off? So I'm assuming you're talking like pine 2x4s where the corners are rounded. It depends on the use. On my old bench, it's made out of 2x4s, and I glued them all together, and then I flattened the top and got rid of all of the roundovers on the corners of the 2x4s. I left them on the bottom then because it really doesn't matter. So it really depends on its use and what you're looking for. Anyone planning on going to Handworks in Amana? Yeah, I'm hoping to be there. It used to happen once every 2 years, but it's been 3 years since the last time they've done it. So I'm looking forward to being at Handworks. From France, hey, how's it going? Oh, hey Mel, what's up?
It says I can't play single player because it doesn't have GYRO.
Yeah, your phone doesn't have a gyro, so it won't do that. It's what keeps it stable. So yeah, you can't play solo on yours. Sorry, babe. Okay, Mel, I got to get back to this.
Sorry.
Computer problems. No problem. I think I'm all shaped now. I use an old burnishing card scraper from Burnisher. Yeah, for a long time I actually used a knife burnisher with the ridges on it. I really like those. Question. This is from Simon Thays. I just made a frame saw inspired by your videos, but when I used it on my own, when I used it in my oven-dried oak, the boards curl like crazy. Can I fix this, or do I have to plane them flat again? What's happening is, well, there's a couple different things that could be happening. Is if you have kiln-dried oak, if they did it too fast, the outside dries, but the inside is still wet. And when you cut them, they want to spring apart and they'll bend, and you'll get that cupping in there. And that's one of the problems with kiln-dried oak, with kiln-dried wood of any kind, if they kiln-dry it too fast. If they kiln-dry it the right amount, then that's not going to be a problem. Now, the other thing is that you could have tension in the board. So as you cut it, the board will twist and do different things. And you'll find the two boards either bend together or one of them will start warping off this way. And that's because they were either from like a limb or the tree trunk was bending, and so there's tension built into the tree. And when you cut it, you're releasing that tension. Another thing is you could cut them, and then if you lay them down on a surface, one side will absorb more water than the other, and that will cause them to cup. In each of those, there's different methods. If it was cupped because of not being dried all the way through from the kiln, then all you have to do is let it sit, and hopefully over the next few weeks, it will come back into equilibrium and the bend will work its way out. May or may not do that all the way, or it may just take some of the bend out. If it's twisted from tension in the wood, yeah, the only thing you can do is plane it down flat. If it is from sitting flat on a surface and absorbing more moisture on one side of the board than the other, like if you ever store wood on concrete, the surface against the concrete will usually soak up the moisture, and that side will expand and you'll get a cup up on the surface. The best thing you can do is flip it over and let the other side absorb moisture, or let the first side then lose a little bit until it goes out flat. Or better yet, rack them up so that air can get to both sides and they can both dry out. So if you rack them up and let air get to both sides for a couple weeks and they haven't gotten back to flat, then that means you should plane them down to flat again. It's the only way to get rid of it. It's pretty common with woods that have been dried improperly. Hit the like button, guys. Oh, thanks, man. What wood sort is best to use to make a mallet? Whatever you want. And I have a whole bunch of different mallets from all different types. I have some that are made out of Douglas fir. I have some that are made out of rock maple. I have some that are oak. I have some that are cherry. Different hardnesses have different things, and different mallets are used for different purposes. If you're doing finish movement, I often use a soft mallet like my cherry whenever I'm doing finish adjustments on my oak, because the cherry will ding before my oak will ding, so my mallet has less of a chance of dinging up the wood. And so that's one of the reasons why I have a Douglas fir mallet, is it's really soft. So anytime I want to move something around, I'll use that so I'm not dinging up my work. But then my main joinery mallet for my chisel work is made out of really curly, twisted oak, white oak. I really like that wood because it deforms nicely and it's got a good shape to it. But there really is no good or bad mallet, because there are so many different uses for a mallet. There are different ways of doing it. So you have to ask yourself, how hard do you want the wood and how soft do you want the wood? Do you want the wood to, if there's a lot of open grain in it, such as like ash, sometimes ash will splinter off when it's struck, but honestly, for most joinery mallets, ash really isn't that bad of a problem because it holds together fairly well. There really aren't any bad woods other than like palm. Don't use palm. Palm is trash. Greetings from California. How's it going? Lots of strips of wood together on that curve. Lots of thin strips of wood glued together on that curve. Yeah. Question. What would you use for making a gauge? A little blade or a small nail? Depends. If I want to be using it for a lot of cross grain marking, I'm going to use a blade. Blades will give you a much better mark going cross grain. If I'm going with the grain, I'm going to use a nail. And I have some of both that I use differently. I find myself using the nail, a point, far more than I do using the knife edge. I just find it to be a little more versatile. So if I had it my way, I would use a nail and sharpen it into a point, and that's what I use for most of mine. But I do have a few knife marking gauges that I use anytime I'm going cross grain or anytime I have different purposes for them. So 6 fun after does another. Have you made an Abe Lincoln inspired mallet? Oh yeah, one with the sliding dovetail. Those are a lot of fun. I have made one a while ago. I should probably do that again. I don't think I have a video on that. I had one that I made off video, but no, I don't think I have a video on that. So yeah, I should do that. That'd be a good video. Cool. Let's get back to gluing the other one together. So we got one glued. Now he's going to glue the other one. Let's do the dance. Okay, so on this one is number 1 and number 2. And then we've got 2 and 1. Make sure 1. Okay, so you go over here and you go over here, and this is Sarah's end. So Sarah's end goes down. And then we've got 2 and 1. That one there, that one there. Okay, let's do the dry fit. Always, always, always do a dry fit. Make sure that everything is the way it should be. Make sure you have all the pieces. I mean, these are the last 3 pieces, so it should all go together. But always, always, always do the dry fit. 2 and the 2. Okay, cool. So that's in there, that's in there, that's in there. This is the top, this is the top. This one's pegged, that's in there. Okay, good, we're good to go. So let's take this apart and start up our glue up. We already mixed up the glue. So now, take these apart. Come free. It's that one. And that one. And this one goes here. Question, what would you use for making a marking? Oh yeah, I already answered that one, sorry. Late, of course. Well, there's no such thing as late. Ooh, I let it get a little warm. So I gotta work a little bit faster here. So one of the things with epoxy, if you mix up too much, it has a runaway capability, and it will suddenly harden up and get really, really hot. And I've actually done it in a paper cup once and caught the paper cup on fire because it heated up to the point that the paper cup combusted. Not a happy time, actually. Okay, 1. Whoop. 1. 1, good. Now let's do this one. Sorry, I'm not neglecting you. I'm just trying to focus on the glue up. Whoop. Don't put glue where you don't want it. Thankfully, I've got a little bit more scraping to do afterwards. So I'm going to clean them all up with a scraper. And the nice thing about a good square corner card scraper is you can get right into corners, whereas with sanding, sometimes it's hard to clean out glue that's in corners. Happy day, happy day, happy day, happy day, happy day. Okay, there we go. So now we got that in there. Let's go 1 into 1, 1. Make sure everything's the way I want it to be. Got that one down. Got that one down. Now let's glue up these tenons. Oh, gluey, gluey, gluey. Oops. I'm gotta be careful of that. Really, really hoping I can have one of these 2 desks done by Wednesday next week. Have the other one done soon after. I'm gonna actually do some carving in these. I want to do actually do carving in the desktop, and I'm going to put my logo, the W, about 8 inches in diameter or so, and then carve it rather deep and fill it with epoxy, and then plane it off so I get the colored epoxy infill. So I'm looking forward to playing with that. This side. Almost there. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you guys. I'll read comments here in a minute as soon as I get this all clamped up. I'm just focusing on getting the glue done. This glue is actually starting to cure up on me. So I made it a bit too much. There, that should be it for the glue. Let me make sure I've got this right. Sarah on this end, Sarah on, oop, that's not right. 1, 2, 2. Oh, that is right. Okay. Let me make sure then. So 2 goes in there, so does it go this way? So if this is Sarah's end, no, it needs to go this way because that joint comes in there. Cool. I don't want to put it in wrong because if I do, I have to make all these pieces again or something like that. Yay! Okay, let's start the clamp up. Let's grab this one. Clamp these 2 legs together. There's that. And I need 2 clamps to pull them together. These are actually the clamps that I made a while ago with Wildman Tech. He did the welding for them. Oh, really? Oh, good. Just barely. There's 1. I should be able to fit 2 in there. There we go. Brute force and violent manipulation, 2 of my favorite tools. Now let's drive in these pins. Oh, I gotta chamfer them. Now chamfer the end so that it'll drive in past the drawboard slot. And we're through, and we're through. Nice. One more pin and this leg will be done. Ooh, set that down hard. That one's nice and tight, just the way we like it. There we go. We got 2 legs all clamped up. So I'll set those over here to glue. And tomorrow I'll take them out of clamps. Let's see what questions we got. Clean up any epoxy spills. I don't like putting my arm in that. Question, what would you use for, I'm going to answer that one. What is the best glue, water-based, wait, what is the best glue? Water-based or polyurethane? I think you're asking what's the best finish. Water-based, polyurethane, oil-based really have, they both do great. They're both great finishes. Water-based is really cool because you get to see the raw color of the wood. You don't get any of the darkening that comes from an oil added to it. A lot of people really like that. I personally don't, so I don't use water-based that much. But water-based is really good if you have a color from a stain that you want to keep, and you have the wood looking exactly like you want it to look. Now you want to put a protective finish on it. If you put water-based on it, it'll keep the exact same color it had. So there's pros and cons to both. What you split or cut the dowels when you split the dowels out of a board, they're stronger, aren't they? Yes. Basically, if I were to take a board like this, and I were to cut it into a square by square dowel, then what happens is I have grain that is running out this way. So if I cut through that, my fibers aren't going to run from one end of the dowel all the way to the other. They're going to run out the side of the dowel. Whereas if I split this, my dowel will be going with the grain, and so the dowel will actually be coming out of the board at an angle. So it's much better to split your dowel, and that's actually what I did to make these ones. Is I took a chunk of wood and a little hatchet and chopped them into about 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch splinters, and then started running them through the dowel plate. But yeah, if you have the option to split a dowel, it is much better than a cut dowel. They are stronger in many ways. Which type of sawhorse do you prefer? Traditional, inverted V, or trestle, a T type? There are different uses for each one, so each one has different purposes. I want to build a saw bent here, which is a T style, an inverted T. And the nice thing about that is you have 2 different heights. So I can have one height that is set at my saw bench. So if I want to extend something longer in my saw bench, I can put it out on that and it will support it. And then I have a second height on it that is the same height as my bench top, so I can set other things out here. So once I get rid of this bench, I'm probably going to be building 2 of those. So those are great for in the shop working around, but they're not as sturdy. So if I'm going to be out in a construction site or something like that, I'm looking for something to turn into a tabletop, then I'm going to want one with splayed legs. That's much more sturdy design. And so I'll use that to put a tabletop on. So each one has different purposes and different styles. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. So I need to build one so I can begin working on a bench top. Yeah, actually, if you build 2, the inverted V style sawhorses and use those as your legs, you can make a great bench out of that. I know quite a few people will just take 2 sheets of 3-inch, they'll take 1 sheet of 3/4 inch thick plywood, cut it in half so that's 8 foot by 2 foot wide, and then they'll sandwich those 2 together so you have a top that's 1.5 inch thick by 8 foot long by 2 foot wide, and just put that on top of a couple sawhorses and you got yourself a bench, and that will actually, for a lot of things, that will do you really well. when you use epoxy, does it crack when wood moves? No, actually, epoxy, well, okay, expansion and contraction of the wood due to heat is almost identical to the expansion and contraction of most epoxies due to heat. So they will expand and contract together, so there's no problem with that. Expansion and contraction from water absorption, epoxy is usually not going to expand quite as fast, and so there might be some problems with that. But that being said, it's a really common thing to use in the boat industry. Now, most of the time they're going to be using something that actually has a little bit more flexibility to it, but most epoxies that are designed for that, you're not going to have any problem with them cracking. If you get the cheap ones, yeah, you're going to have problems with that. But if you get a decent structural epoxy, such as the high performance from Total Boat, those are great. What kind of joinery would you say is best for heavy-duty wood drawers? Dovetails or rabbets? Oh, dovetails. Dovetails are far stronger than rabbets. Dovetails are stronger than rabbets. Rabbets are easier. But for an average drawer in a cabinet or something like that, rabbets are perfectly fine. They'll last you quite a while. Yeah, it didn't split this time. Yeah. Yeah, I made sure to drive it, because the problem with it, with what I had the other day, is I had it overhanging the bench by almost 4 inches. So when it went into the second side, there was just nothing supporting that second side. So this time when pounding it, I made sure it was right next to the dowel so it had some support. Have you done a tutorial on sharpening a Stanley 28 or 29? I can't remember what a Stanley 28 or 29 is. Remind me and I'll answer you. But I have a sharpening video on most every tool out there. Do you undertake much wood turning? I used to do a lot of wood turning. When I had a power shop, I had a lathe and I did a good bit of turning. I haven't done that much because I up until recently, I only had a spring pull lathe. And the spring pull lathe is a lot of fun, but it's not the tool you want when you want to get things done. But now that I have my foot-powered lathe, I'm going to do a good bit more on that. So I'm actually going to be turning a bowl on that here soon. But I have a couple handles and some spindle turning I've been doing on that. There's a couple videos showing using the foot-powered lathe. But yeah, I can't remember what a 28 or 29 is. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's see. What's next on this? Okay, we've got those getting ready for scraping. We've got that in there. I got tabletop. No, I've got to peel that off and get that ready for scraping. What time is it? Oh, it's almost 4 o'clock. Yeah, we got about 10 more minutes. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead and throw those on there. About 10 more minutes or so, I'm going to keep this going. But I'm going to clear this off and bring the desk top up on here, because the next thing I have to do is some detail work on the top. Shoot, no, I got to put those through first. I've got to put the square pins through this. I didn't think that through now, did I? I did not think that through. Oh well. Yeah. So the next, well, I've got to put the stretchers in between the two legs. I had the video on Saturday where I put the large bent stretcher and the straight stretcher between two legs, but I didn't do that on the second set, so I still need to do that on there. And the next thing I have to do is pull up the tops, and I'm actually going to start working on those. I need to clean up the live edges. Here, let me show you what we got. Come back here. So here I've got, there we go. I've got to clean up the live edges on these. And then I have to do all of the finish sanding, and I have some more filling I've got to do on them. Not finish sanding, finish scraping, finish planing. I have to do the filling on them, and then the final planing. And then I have to do the mating pins between these and the legs. So that'll be coming out here soon. And then it's finished. So we're ready to finish. Then I have these two slabs, and these are actually going to turn into a parallel coffee table. So I'm going to have these two slabs out here. So imagine this whole thing being turned on its side. But then I'm going to have cables running between these, and those cables will support the distance between these, so it'll look like it's floating on cables, which I'm really looking forward to doing that. So these will be on there. So these are, what, 50 pounds a piece? What, 50 pounds? 40, 45 pounds, something like that. So those will be good. I've had these sitting for a while, and I thought this might make a really cool project because they're a really interesting slab with some cool grain figure on here. And I'll be doing some epoxy fill and other things like that, cleaning these up. So I'm looking forward to playing with those. That'll probably be 2 projects from now. I just pulled them out to see if I can get those up and going. So here, let me answer the last few questions and then we'll wrap this thing up. So let's see what we got. The cornering tools that come double-ended. Cornering tools. I don't know what you mean. Let me look that up. I don't know what a Stanley 28 or 29 is. Oop, microphone cable. Let's see what we got. 1414 da. Stanley number 28. Stanley number 28. Let's see. Nope, not that. Images. Where are the images? It's showing a Stanley number 28. Or do you say no, 28? It's saying a 28 is a transitional plane. Let me see. Stanley 29, yeah, saying a Stanley 29 is also a transitional plane. So I'm not sure what you're referring to. Sorry. They remind me of zesting peelers. .29 cornering tool. Oh, okay, yeah. The new Stanley numbering system, not the old Stanley numbering system. Yeah, actually, I used to use those quite a bit, especially with doing veneer work. Not veneer work, well, yeah, veneer. So like edge banding plywood. They work great for that, for peeling off a little bit. Although I don't know, I don't think I would use them because I would probably prefer a block plane over that. Yeah, actually I've never sharpened one of those because they're just so cheap. Why sharpen them? But I don't know. My assumption is you would just get sandpaper with a matching dowel and just sand that on there, and that would do it. Because you really don't need to do the inside as long as it stays clean. You just need to do the edge. So as long as you get a matching shape on there, you can just basically sand it on there and grind out new material. Which is stronger for a workbench? Southern yellow pine or generic pine studs from the big box store? Well, the pine you're going to get from the big box store is very different depending upon where you are in the country. Around here, most all the pine is Douglas fir, which is a really nice fir. I mean, honestly, I'd prefer Douglas fir over yellow pine. Just personal preference. Both of them are very, very similar in constitution and construction. So around here, I get construction over yellow pine because it's cheaper. If you go down south, many places down south, southern yellow pine is what the construction lumber is. You go out west, and you're going to be getting a lot of other things. You'll be getting a lot of the western woods in your construction lumber. So it really depends on where you're at. But most of the time, most of the pines are pretty equal. There isn't that much difference between them. Some of them are really, really soft. They're just a little bit better at balsa wood, but most of them are relatively decent. So, you know, Douglas fir, southern yellow, they'll treat you well. They'll treat you well. Portugal, good to have you. A round diamond file. Yeah, that would do it. Question, have you used a mini workbench before? I have built one that past makes, yeah. Actually, it's one of the things I've been thinking about doing is making a mini workbench that raises the height of my workbench just about 6 inches more, which is really nice for doing joinery. It just brings things up closer to your work. So if you're working on small detailed things, having it a little bit higher is nice. And so I have been thinking about making a bench on bench, or the nice thing about that is I could travel with it, as I could take that bench and then lock it down to a table or something of that nature, and I can do some woodworking while traveling. It's been on my list to make, but I just never have. I have used them in the past. They're really just as good as how well do they clamp to the surface that they're on. So if they have a good way of connecting to the surface they're on, and the surface they're on is solid enough that it's not going to be moving around on you, then they're good. If the surface is going to be moving around, such as like a folding table, you're not going to have any fun on it. Cool. I think I'm going to wrap this one up, and I'll probably be doing another live. Let's see, today's Thursday. I might do one on Saturday. I'll probably do one Sunday, and maybe have my wife in the shop then. And hopefully I'm going to be doing a live hangout with patrons tomorrow. So if you're working in your shop tomorrow and you want to work along with me, we'll be doing a kind of a live hangout, and we can all work in our shops and look at what each other are working on. So hopefully be doing that tomorrow. But yeah, I think that'll do it for now. Now I've got to get a bunch of things done. So hopefully tomorrow we'll be working on the tops, putting some epoxy in those and cleaning them up, getting them ready for this. One more question. Would you recommend sawing boards out of maple rounds or splitting with wedges? Sawing boards out of maple rounds. If you can get enough wood splitting them out, splitting is always better. Splitting rives them with the wood, and you'll be working with the grain rather than cutting across the grain. But it is a more wasteful way of doing it because you're not always going to be getting all the wood out of it. So sawing is more economical, but isn't going to give you quite as good a wood as riving out will. But both of them will give you a decent amount of lumber. You'll just get more lumber sawing than you will riving. So yeah, I think that'll about do it. So, you need a dad joke to end this one. So we need a dad joke. We need, what did we do today? Sticky situation. No, epoxy. We're working with legs. Standing around working someone's shop. No. We did not have a smashing good time this time, because last time we had a smashing good time. Okay, Google, tell me a joke. Sorry for those of you Google. I don't know if you heard that. What's the difference between a hippo and a zippo? One is really heavy, and the other's a little lighter. Cool. I think that'll do it. So until next time, have a wonderful day. Now I got to go turn this thing off since Sarah's not here. You don't get to see me stand still pointing at things. Let's do that. Oh, end stream. Bye.